welcome to the one and only Team Tszyu.
G'day guys, how are we doing? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, July 28th, 2025, and it's great to have you back as far as our normal show goes. I know we were back last Tuesday night with Anthony Cox and Daniel Smart. It's great to have the boys along, and thanks again for those guys for coming on. But as I said, back to our normal programming tonight. So lots going on. We had was it the press conference today, the announcement of Nikita Tszyu and Michael Zarafa on the same card on August the 20th. Of course, I'm sure you'll want to talk more about Tim Tszyu, what happened last week, and lots of other things as well. Plenty to talk about. Now, if you're new to the show, the title of the show is exactly what it is. It's Talking Boxing. You decide what direction we go. You can see the comment section there. Put your question, opinion, remark, whatever you might want to call it, in the comment section. And as it says there, let's talk some boxing. All right, well, let's get into it first. I'm just going through my list in front of me there of what comments were first. And we'll start with Cal Jane. How are you, Cal? You were, I see underneath there, right with what was going to be said by George Rose about the upcoming fights, and love Michael Zarafa, and Nikita's comment, prefer Michael respectful. Yeah, well, it is good to actually see him respectful, Cal. I just don't think he needs to be probably as controversial as he can be sometimes. I understand that. I suppose he's got to play the persona. A lot of people obviously see him as the villain, as the heel, as they say in the WWE, but I thought he spoke really well today, and I'm not sure what George Rose and Nikita Tszyu sort of made of it. I think they were expecting a little bit more fiery sort of response, and especially the host of the announcement. What was her name? I can never remember her name. But you could see that she was trying to goad Michael into a comment, also trying to goad Nikita into a comment. I was like, hey, well, don't worry about the show that's on, was just being announced by George Rose. It was a little bit awkward for me. She was trying her best to get the momentum going on that fight. And I just don't think, I just gathering by the body language of both guys, I'm not sure it's actually going to be next. I'm sure George Rose would want it to be next. But Nikita was a bit sort of non-committal about it, and even Michael Zarafa was like, "Well, I'm probably more. I've got no beef with Nikita. I want Tim." So, it wasn't exactly the fireworks that I think main event were really after to try and get the momentum going. If that's in fact what they're trying to do, yeah. And if you didn't see Walking Boxing this morning, what Cal is referring to there, as I said this morning, is that George Rose will get the Don King wig on, and he'll tell us about the knockout of the year from Dalman, I think his name is, talk about his criminal past, all that sort of stuff, and that's exactly what he spoke about. Look, at the end of the day, I mean, he's got to do what he's got to do. He's got to talk up his promotion. I'm just not so sure, especially reading a lot of the comments online, that people are going to be really impressed about paying $70, if not $80 for this event. I got no dramas, as I said this morning, on the matchups they've given Nikita and Michael. It all makes sense, but to actually charge people full whack, I'm just not quite sure the Australian boxing public are going to like it. I think they've had enough, if I'm being honest. They're used to paying a lot less amounts for the pay-per-views from overseas. Again, I've tried to explain it's a lot different, to get a pay-per-view of a third-party promotion, so an overseas promoter compared to an Australian-based promoter. It's a tough one. I won't bother explaining it now, but I can understand when they've got to charge what they do. But geez, on this occasion, I understand it when it's Tim Tszyu involved. Millions of dollars are being forked out. I get it. But for this one, I'm not quite sure there's been a lot of money going to be spent on the event. I don't think Well, Nikita probably wouldn't come cheap, and even Michael to some extent would want to be paid. But yeah, I'm not quite sure whether the Australian boxing probably going to want to put their hand in the pockets for $70 or $80. But anyway, all right, the Big J, how are you there? What do you got there? Hey, mate, always wanted to ask you, have you ever considered Danny Green a world champion, considering all 3 of his belts were second-tier titles? I don't. Your thoughts? All right, Big J, well, I must admit I wasn't expecting this type of question. I was expecting more about Tim and Nikita and Michael and everything else that's going on in the world at the moment, in the boxing world. Now, forgive me if correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that when Danny beat Stipe Drew back in, was it 2007, that was for the full WBA title from memory. I know he did win some interim belts, and I know Anthony Mundine was the same, but he won the full belt against Antoine Eccles. Look, to be honest with you, BJ, in this day and age, and I think even was the case back then with all these interim champions and global champions and super champions and champion and recess, all this sort of stuff, I can't answer the question. But I was pretty sure that he won the full belt over Stipe Drew, who cannot believe he was in a world title fight, by the way. You sort of get maybe that's why Danny can probably relate a little bit to Tim Tszyu, because if you can remember, Stipe Drew was about the size of Fundora as well. He was massive. But do I consider him a real world champion? Yes, I suppose. If it was the full belt. Was he the best light heavyweight champion at the time? No, he wasn't. But did he win the title? Well, it's not going to say on BoxRec because I don't recognise the WBA. If someone can do some research on that, I'm pretty sure he won it over Stipe Drew. All right. I've got more of your comments there, mate. All right, so WBC interim. This is Danny Green. WBA regular. Okay, so maybe that's the belt. The closest to a legit belt, and the IBO. Well, I don't consider the IBO a world title. I will consider the WBA belt a legit at the time, but did the WBA have a super light heavyweight champion at the time? That's the question I'm asking, BJ. Now, what's the difference? The WBA regular, now what is that? Is that the actual champion? The WBA regular belt? Is that just the champion, or have we got the super champion and interim champion and global champion and whatever else besides that? I don't know. I knew he won the WBC interim over Eric Lucas. The IBO, was that? I knew he won the cruiserweight title. But anyway, look, I don't know. We can talk about it all night, Big J, but look, yeah, I think I've answered that. I hope anyway. So, all right, Big J. Also, when are you having myself and the Chump Bank on the channel? Many issues to discuss. While Tim is a break, who do you think will become the new face of Australian boxing? Well, I think we all know who should be the face of boxing, and of course, it's Jai Pataya. I think it could be Nikita, Big J, and I know before everyone comes at me that people say, "How could you say it?" Well, you said they're the face of boxing, of Australian boxing. Now, Jai Pataya is easily the best fighter in Australia, but we're talking about the face. What poster or what fighter are they going to put on the poster that said Australian boxing and this is it? Or maybe there's a dictionary that says Australian boxing, who's the photo beside it? I think it could be Nikita. Who else is there? Now, obviously you've got Liam Paro, there's the Maloney's, there's Sam Goodman. Even if Sam wins next month, I still don't think he will be anywhere near the face of boxing. He will definitely be in the top sort of 3 or 4 pound for pound. But, I think it's going to be Nikita Tszyu, Big J. I don't really see anyone else. Look, what I would love is that the Australian media, and especially the Australian boxing media, really have a push behind Jai Pataya. This is the time. This is the time for all those boxing writers. They're all got their heads up their ass and the little fanboy glasses on about Tim. Now's the time for them to say to their employers and their publishers, whatever it is, we need to write about this guy. We need to get him out there. Now, he shouldn't need it, by the way, but this is why this country's got its head up its ass as far as this sort of stuff goes. But Jai Pataya should be the face of boxing. And I think, as I said, it's time for we all know who they are. They write regularly in the mainstream papers and on the mainstream websites. that we need them to take the stand, because if they don't, well, what are we going to do about it? Well, I can be on here talking till I'm blue in the face about it, but to my 2,000 subscribers and all the other influencers out there, or not influencers, the other YouTube channels, and if they are influencers, whatever they are out there, to get behind it, well, we're only going to make a little dent. Those guys, and I know they're bound by a lot of boundaries, by the way, as far as relationships goes and arrangements with certain promoters and the TV networks and the papers, all that crap. But you know, who are the ones online? The Peter Bedell's, the Brendan Bradfords, those types of guys. It's up to them. And unless they really get it out, well, we're still going to be sitting here talking about how good Jai is, but no one in the boxing pub is going to know who he is. It's a sad state of affairs, Big Joe. All right. Tom. Where's Tom's dad, Naz? I can find you there, mate. There it is. I'm trying to go in order here for the first bit. All right. El General, fast becoming one of my favourite fighters to watch. What a knockout over the weekend. Still only 21, and more development to come as well. He could be special. Now, is this Vargas? Emiliano? Is it Emiliano? Isn't it Vargas, Naz? I think that's who you're referring to. Mate, if that's who you are discussing there, he is a gun. Again, I mentioned him on the walking boxing this morning. He is a very, very good fighter. Again, I've mentioned it a few times in here. I saw him in the flesh sparring Jorge Linares, and Linares really teed off on him. And this is, 3 years ago, so he would have been 18. Linares did not go easy. He really went after Vargas, and he took some big shots and a lot of punishment, but I tell you what, the kid did not take a backward step and gave as good as he got. So I remember walking out there thinking, this kid could be special. I think he could be the pick of the Vargas brothers, Naz. I think. So we will see. But if that's who you're referring to, then I agree with you, mate. 100%. All right. Where are we? All right. Sorry, I'll try and go to... Where are we? I'm still with you, Naz. Who has the most upside? Hang on, I'll get to that. All right, I'm going to just go. I'm going to scrap that. I do it every week, don't I? I try and do it in order, and it just never works. All right, Asbot. I'll get to you in a minute too. No, sorry. The comments are all over the place. I can't believe the negative flack Tszyu is copping from some corners, mate. I'm with you. Now, I understand that if you don't win, then you're a target. We see it every week with all the sports teams. If they win, everyone loves them. If they lose, then everyone's all over them and they're losers and sack the coach, all that sort of stuff. And unfortunately, it's Tim Tszyu's turn. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. But unfortunately, Asbot, again, this is the world that we live in. And I cannot believe some of the stuff I read online, if I'm being honest, Asbot. Now, okay, I agree that maybe Tim is not as good as maybe everyone thought he was. Maybe the opposition wasn't as good as we thought it was. All that sort of stuff. But end of the day, this is an elite athlete who's put his balls on the line and has won a world title, came up short, and whether he's good enough or not doesn't really matter. He's represented Australia with distinction, if you ask me. And okay, he might not be good enough, but who cares? But people on there, with the quitting sort of jibes at him and all that sort of stuff. Look, we've been over it, a lot in the last sort of week or so. But yeah, I'm with you, Asbot. I can't believe the hate that some people can spill. I mean, it's okay to have constructive opinions. I get that. I've had my own. I say it regularly on here, and I won't back away from that. But it's when it becomes personal. I mean, some really personal attacks there. And now Nikita's copying it as well. I don't like it. I really don't. And I think we just got to separate sometimes. Okay, we're not happy that they lost. We might have an opinions whether they're not good enough, all that sort of stuff. And again, I've been one of those people who have my say, but do it professionally. Well, professionally, a lot of these people aren't professional, I suppose, but do it with a bit of class about you. Have your say, do it constructively. But some of the comments, geez, some people need to get out, take a deep breath, look up at the sky and, just take it all in and just relax before they throw some of these comments out. I don't like it. But anyway, is that right? Drew, sad to hear about the passing of Dwight Muhammad Qawi, the Camden buzzsaw. Rest in peace. I didn't know that, Drew. I remember Dwight Muhammad Qawi back in the day. Of course, he was Dwight Braxton before then. Had some ripper fights. Fought Michael Spinks. Beat Leon Spinks later on. Fought Evander Holyfield a couple of times, former WBA light heavyweight champion. I didn't know that, Drew. Thanks for filling me in there, mate. And yeah, definitely rest in peace to Dwight Muhammad Qawi / Dwight Braxton. A very, very good fighter back in the day. And you got to remember too, guys, he was a lighter heavyweight. I'm pretty sure he was about 5'6", 5'7", and he still went with the big boys, including Spinks, Michael Spinks, who was about 6'3". So, yeah, that's a shame there, mate. That is a real shame. Drew says, Asbot, I unfortunately can understand the criticism on Tim. Unlike the Fundora camp, it appeared that he did no homework or adjustments from the first fight. I get that, Drew, and I agree with you. As I said, the only thing I'll say is that it's the way people go about having their opinions. I mean, we're all, as George Costanza would say on Seinfeld, we're living in a society. We'll have some, I don't know, what do you call it, respect or tact or class, whatever you might want to call it. But, geez, it definitely brings out the worst in people, mate. I'm with you there, mate. I can understand the criticism, and I agree with a lot of the criticism. Don't get me wrong. But when it becomes so personal, I mean, now dragging Nikita into, I've seen comments about his family. I mean, it's not good. It's not good, and just makes you a little bit skeptical of where we're going, I'll tell you. But maybe it's always been there, and now people have just got a platform. And a platform they can hide behind without any repercussions. But anyway. All right, Flash. How are you, Flash? G'day, Lynden. Thanks again for taking us on your recent travels. Now that we have Nikita scheduled for August, what are your thoughts considering his future and what he could learn from Tim's fights? Well, I think he'll learn a lot, Flash. And no problem at all with the videos, mate. I'm glad you enjoyed them. My thoughts on his future, I don't know. And I think George Rose actually said that himself today. Who knows? Who knows where Nikita's at? Now, I don't think he's at the world level yet, anywhere near it, if I'm being honest. But I would hope, and you say there about what could he learn from Tim's fights, I think he could learn a lot. Now, if anyone's going to benefit out of what happened to Tim, it is Nikita. So he's now going to have to, and hopefully he's already done it, is really look at what went wrong for Tim. He's obviously been exposed to the big league, the big league. I'm not talking about Australia, I'm talking about overseas. So hopefully Nikita's looked at that and went, okay, well, I need to adjust some things. I need to look at how I'm fighting and the way I'm fighting, because if I don't, then that is the fate that awaits me. That's what I think, hopefully, Nikita is looking at as far as what he learned from Tim. And I'm sure he would have held Tim up on a pedestal more than anyone would have. Of course, it's his big brother. And to see what happened to Tim, I think he will be really taking it all in, and hopefully that transfers into what he's doing in the ring, because he's got some flaws, Nikita, we all know. Defense is not really his forte. It's not really his focus. Well, it's going to need to be, because if it's not, then he might be in some trouble. Because, and it's interesting, Michael said today he actually thinks Nikita is more talented than Tim. I don't know where that was, just being a little bit smart about the whole thing. I don't know. But who knows? He might be more talented than Tim. I don't think so. But who knows? Maybe if he does tweak a few things and learn from what happened to Tim, maybe he will become the better fighter. Again, remains a lot to be seen. So it's a good question though, Flash. Shadow Boxer, you love ragging on Aussie fighters, hey Big J. Well, yes, Shadow Boxer. Look, Big J's entitled to his opinion. Now, I don't agree with a lot of what Big J says, but hey, it's a free country. He's got his own platform. He can have his say. Yeah, I did hear a lot of Big J. I'm sure you're still on here, Big J. So you can comment if you like there. Look, yeah, I did watch your video and a little bit of the T Street stuff as well. And again, even though I don't agree with probably 95% of it, that's fine. That's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. But if you are, as you say there, Shadow Boxer, ragging on Aussie fighters, or any fighter for that matter, then I suppose you've got to expect people are going to disagree and come at you. But yeah, that's the world we live in at the moment. All right, Tony. Who determines if a boxer should not be fighting anymore? I watched an interview with Dillian White over the weekend, and I'm not a psychologist or a doctor, but it sure does seem his speech is slurred. CTE. Could be, Tony. And look, even on the weekend, who's the guy? Is it Matt Floyd fought Shane Mosley? If any fighter should not be allowed to fight at Shane Mosley. Can barely string two words together, and it was sad. It really was. Now, I got no idea who is Matt Floyd anyway. A lot of comments about it. I didn't check his social media. He's got a lot of followers. Am I missing something here? Is he from a different combat sport? Let me know in the chat there. It might take me a while to get to it, but yeah, who is he? I got no idea. Was that his pro debut? Let me have a look. What's his name? Matt Floyd. Or was it Matty Floyd or Matthew Floyd? There it is. The Jedi. All right. 15-2, 10 knockouts. Okay, I've never heard of him. I'm sorry. Obviously, he's been fighting. He's had his whole career in Thailand. No, he started in Queensland. Okay, and his last few fights have been in Thailand. I don't know who he is, sorry guys, but he did beat Shane Mosley. But yeah, as far as your question there, Tony, I'm with you, mate. I don't want to see Dillian Whyte continue to fight, but he's not the only one, mate. There's a lot of people out there. Now, I'm not sure. Did I miss a super chat? There it is there. Sorry, Andy. There you are, mate. $10. Thank you very much. Hello, boxing fans. Congratulations to all the winners over the weekend. Subscribe, share, and smash that like button, please, folks. Thanks very much, Andy. And apologies I missed your super chat there, mate. I really appreciate the support. All right. We'll keep moving down. Where are we? All right. There's Glenn in the chat. How are you, Glenn? I think Tim needs to share some responsibility in his loss, says Glenn. No, you're right, Glenn. I agree, and I'm sure he will. I'm sure if you asked Tim, he would share most of the responsibility. And I think I said it in one of my videos the other day. There's sort of 4 sections of what happens in boxing. It's the promoter who gets the opportunities. It's the manager who decides what opportunities they're going to take. It's the team, the training team that prepares the fight, and then, of course, it's the fighter themselves. So there's 4 tiers. And I'm sure Tim will 100% accept a lot of the responsibility, Glenn. We've only sort of heard limited things from Tim. It was only that short little thing he put on social media the other day, but I'm sure once he's ready and he comes out and talks to the boxing public and all his fans, I'm sure he will do exactly that, Glenn. I don't think at any stage has he sort of insinuated that it was anyone else's fault except himself. All right. Naz, when you were talking about movies made about boxers on Walking Boxing, I kept thinking how good a movie about B-Hop would be. Would be awesome, from prison boxing to world titles. It's another good one there, Naz. And especially being the oldest fighter ever to win a world title as well. So it's got a few different sort of connotations about it, hasn't it? Has he got I suppose he has the personality to sort of carry it. I mean, if a lot of the other fighters have, I'm sure he has. But yeah, it's a good call, Naz. I mean, there's only so many movies they can make about fighters. How many you go through? I think I said Oscar, which is going to get made. I did say Manny, which will definitely get made. In Australia, Fennec is getting made as well. And I'm assuming that, who knows, it could be something about Lester Ellis one day. But yeah, I'm with you there, mate. Wouldn't be too bad. Yeah, I think I just got another super chat. There is Dennis. $5. Thanks very much, Dennis. G'day all. Why do you think Jai doesn't get attention from the boxing media? Is he just too brutally honest and not politically correct? I don't think it's politically correct, Dennis. I don't think I've ever seen him really get involved in anything political or anything like that. Look, I just think that it's a good question. It's a really, really good question. What's the best way to look at it? Look, as far as being a talent, obviously he's number one. I'm just not sure maybe he's got that personality, Dennis. I don't know. It's one thing as well as that. Look, actually, I'll tell you what it is, Dennis, which is a major thing. He's with Tasman fighters who have done amazing things with Jai and what they've done for him. The problem is that he doesn't get the exposure because he's not with No Limit. And No Limit, not to say No Limit would have done a better job with Jai than what Tasman have. What I'm saying is that No Limit have the connection with the media in Australia. So you see there's no coincidence. Whenever there's a No Limit show on, it gets full coverage. Herald Sun here in Melbourne, Daily Telegraph in Sydney, the Courier Mail up in Brisbane, whatever the paper is over in Perth, they get maximum coverage and multiple stories and interviews and videos and you name it. They get saturated with it. The public do. They get saturated with the coverage. When Jai Pataia fights, or the Maloneys, or even George, Liam Paro, when they fight, they don't get any media backing. So they're relying 100% on social media. They might get a couple stories here or there, but not enough to get them out there. So what happens is they're reliant on social media. We all do our best. The Jay McAllisters and the Before the Fights and all those people out there doing their utmost best to get them out there. But what they're doing is the content is going to people that already know who Jai is. All the boxing fans. So what the Jai Pataias and the Liam Paros and the Maloneys, all that miss is that this flooding of publicity that goes out to people who aren't necessarily, staunch boxing fans. That's the problem. And as much as Tasman get opportunities for Jai, if the mainstream media aren't behind Jai, well, what hope has he got? So they're preaching to an already subscribed audience in the boxing public. We all know who Jai is. So the average boxing punter who, they're football fans and cricket fans and racing fans or car racing, whatever it might be, and casual boxing fans who just watch when the big fights are on, they don't know who Jai is. That's the problem. Until we actually get the Peter Bedell's and Brendan Bradfords and all those types of guys, well, not necessarily them because they're only doing what they're told, but until we get this whole monopoly out the road and the media are allowed to write who they want to write about, it's not going to change, mate. We're going to continue to see just those, No Limit aligned fighters get all the news. And isn't it ironic, though, Dennis, as well, that, and I know personalities maybe come down to it in some ways, and maybe like what you say there, politically correct might be a thing, is someone like a Harry Garside is more well-known than what Jai Pataia is. Now, that is a travesty, but it's because why? The media got right behind him. Now, in the Harry Garside's case, it's the quirky lifestyle and his quirky outlook on life, and being the ballerina and the fingernails getting painted, all that sort of stuff. But he's very, very marketable because he is that quirky and eccentric type of guy. And I don't like it, but that's just, again, the society we live in. People are fascinated by them, and look what happened at the Olympic Games. When they got home, Harry lost in his first fight. They went straight past the two bronze medalists and they went straight for Harry for an interview. That's just the way it is. So it all rests on the media, not just the print media, but Channel 7, 9 and 10. Harry's been all over those channels. He's been on reality TV shows. And unless those types of mediums get behind you, Dennis, you got no hope. You've got no hope. So unless Jai goes on, I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here or something like that, or Dancing with the Stars. Could you see Jai on Dancing with the Stars? Probably not. That's the sort of stuff that you need to get out there to the non-mainstream boxing crowd. And until that happens, mate, he's going to be in obscurity, unfortunately. All right, so we'll keep going through. All right, back to Naz. All right, Naz, who has the most upside of Moton, Vargas, Zayas, Mason, Schofield, and Norman Jr. Will be Mason for mine, but Vargas the best watch. This is Emiliano Vargas. Look, too early for him, Naz. I'm not going to put him in that category yet. Look, I'm not going to... Look, you've probably got a couple of different categories there. I think Moton and Vargas would be in the same category. Maybe Schofield. Maybe Schofield would be in the Zayas Mason sort of category, but Moton and Vargas, I think you can put aside. They're just very, very raw young kids. I would probably prefer, that would be a great fight, wouldn't it? Moton and Vargas. I think Vargas could be more marketable, Naz, so I would think get behind him. And out of the others, Zayas, Mason, Schofield, and Norman. Norman's probably the better fighter, but he's not going to get a lot of publicity, I don't think, Naz, and not a lot of attention. So out of those, probably, maybe Xander Zayas. I think the Puerto Ricans are going to get behind him. He's got those, matinee idol good looks and all that sort of stuff. So maybe it's Zayas. As far as most upside, as far as ability goes, out of all them, Norman Jr. is the best fighter out of those other four. All right. What do you got here, Naz? Good old Peter Bedell dropped Ismaili's name as Nikita's next opponent a couple of weeks ago in one of Jai's videos while on the piss in Vegas. Is that right? Good old Peter Bedell. Look, I've talked about him a bit tonight, but look, he's only going to do what he's told. Geez, I don't know. The boxing media in this country, fair dinkum, the non-mainstream stuff is doing okay. All those people out there that are reporting on it, they do a great job. But unfortunately, the mainstream boxing media, they just do what they told. They just skim the surface. They don't, excuse the pun, deep dive into what's happening, and they just state the obvious. And I think that come to a head, didn't it, in Vegas when after the fight, when they had Sean Porter on there with the female host and Jonathan Brown and Peter Bedell. It was a little bit awkward when there was a very shallow discussion because Peter Bedell and especially Jonathan Brown didn't know any better. They didn't have any real input to give because they just didn't know. So, and I love Brownie, by the way, as an AFL player, but to have him over there with special comments on a world title fight, yeah, I'm not so sure that was the case. And Peter Bedell, as the special comments or expert comments, geez, grasping at straws, aren't they? So, yeah, anyway, but I didn't know that, Naz. So he's dropped it out, having a few drinks, said he. All right, still with Naz. We'll keep going through them. The No Limit card obviously built as a showcase for Nikita, Zarafa, and Brock. The opponents all have horrible records. Not mad at it, but I wouldn't be expecting competitive fights. No, they won't be competitive, Naz. Not at all. I watched a bit of the opponents this morning. Not Sam Beck for Brock, but I did have a look at his record. I think they built it up that it was 7. It was 7-0. Let's just have a quick look. And look, I also get it. I did say this morning, preempted it by. At the same time as I'm taking the piss, I totally understand why they've chosen the opponents. I'll say that off the bat. But you've got Sam Beck, who's 7-0, and I'd seen George Rose / Don King this morning pump up the 7-0 record with 4 knockouts. But I mean, his first win was against a guy that was 0-4. Then it was a debut. Then it was one. Actually, he had a winning record, 1-0. The next one was 2-3. 6-14, 11-12. You get where I'm going with this. So I wonder if they've actually got the actual event up at the moment. I didn't have it this morning. There we go. Oh, they have got it up. Okay. All right. And then, look, I went over the records of the other two this morning. Lulzim Ismaili. I think if a lot of people actually commented about this as well, that they had his amateur record. I think he's 0-5 as an amateur. And did get stopped in his last fight, I think, as an amateur. Look, again, I'm not going to have a crack at No Limit for this opponent for Nikita. He needs, after a year out, he needs this type of fight. And Michael Zarafa, they need an opponent like this Mikey Dahlman who looks the part, has that imposing record, has that highlight reel knockout they can wheel out over and over again. But it's all pointing towards the end game, and that's having them matched up against each other. So I haven't got a problem with it. I did see also that Billy Polkinghorn won't be fighting Ahmed Redder, which is a bit of a shame. Apparently he's injured or something. Ahmed Redder, as usual, had a lot to say today about it. He's definitely a character. Who else is on there? So Isaiah Seti, Jazzy Parr, and Brandon Grush. Okay. But yeah, Sam Beck, Naz, yeah, don't expect that fight to go along either. And look, again, I get it. It's all right. Look, the only issue I've got with the card is they're going to charge $70 to $80 for it. That's the only issue I have with it. That if this was one of those Friday night on Fox or the No Limit on Fox, whatever it is, it'd be perfect. 3 name fighters with 3, as they say, tomato cans to knock over just for our entertainment. That's great. But to charging that amount of money, I think that's what people are going to have a problem with. All right. Naz, still, I wish they would scrap Eubank versus Ben and instead have Ben versus Rowley. Winner to fight winner of Norman versus Haney, and Eubank versus Shiraz. Winner to fight Canelo. 2 sold out Wembleys compared to 1. All right, Naz, you've probably had a real think about that. I agree. I think it'll be good. The problem is, though, mate, is that Eubank Ben, or to a lot of people over there, is the fight. I don't think there's been... Well, I think it's one of those fights from what I've seen of the reaction of the second one, if it does go ahead, I know it's on and off and then back on again. I just think it's one of those fights by the looks of things that the boxing public have said, look, we've seen it and we're happy now. We don't need to see it again. That's sort of the impression that I'm getting. And if that was the case, and your theories there make sense, Ben and Rolly, which would be great. That'd be a ripper fight, wouldn't it? Norman and Haney, yep, to fight that, and then Eubank, Shiraz. Jeez, I'm not sure Eubank comes out of that in one piece, Naz. I think Shiraz would take him apart. But yeah, I like it. You got to look at the big picture. Let's see if it happens. There's David in the chat. How are you, David? Drew, unfortunately, Tim can't flush his surname around like Daddy's credit card to get another title fight. At best, with stars aligning, it will take another 4 years at best to get another title shot. Oh, well, Drew, yeah, no, that's cool, mate. Look, I don't think I might be the minority here. I think, obviously, a lot of doors have opened for Tim at the start of his career to maybe get some of those earlier fights and earlier opportunities. I get it. But he did win the WBO belt when the opportunity came. Now, I don't see his last name being the reason that he got the fight with Fundora. The Murtazalia fight, while I just think Tim was the only one at the time willing to step up to fight Murtazalia from what I've seen and heard. So, and again, No Limit got him the opportunity. I don't think you begrudge Tim for taking that fight and his team for taking the Murtazalia fight. Now, in hindsight, of course, it was a bad thing to do, but I don't think he got the fight with Murtazalia because of his last name. I think he got it because he was a former champion. The circumstances, the first Fundora fight still gave him some cred. And then he was the only one probably around that time willing to step up and fight Murtazalia. Then in the Fundora fight, well, I just think it was good management and an opportunity came. Fundora, the Zayas fight. Yeah, the Zayas fight didn't look like it was sort of going to be the right move for them. So they said, well, what's going to be the fight that's going to give us maximum exposure and a good payday? That's when Tim's name would have been mentioned. So, yes, 100% agree with you, Drew, that the last name definitely got him off to a flyer and opened a lot of doors. I think since he won the title, I don't think it's been his last name that has opened those doors. I think it's just been more timing and also good management. And just being the right spot at the right time and the willingness to fight some of those other good champions. So, yeah, Glenn, 4 years, he could be retired. Yeah, I sort of agree there, mate. Could be. There's Batman Boxing. How are you, Batman? Drew says, yeah, I think it's over. He would have to stay active and beat actual contenders. Yeah, well, yeah, that is a good point there, Drew. The only difference this time coming off the Murtazalia and Fundora losses is that this time there's not going to be one of those champions that are going to go, you know what, who are we looking for a voluntary defence? Oh, Tim Tszyu's our man. You know, he's former champion in good shape. He's coming off a win. Nothing like that. He hasn't got that to fall back on this time. So he's going to have to do it the old-fashioned way, Drew, and beat the contenders. Now, how far high can he go? At the moment, by the way, not ranked by anyone apart from the WBC. And even with that they haven't updated the rankings yet. He's number 3, but again, I think it was updated a week before his fight. So he's going to fall out of the top 15 there because he's not ranked in the top 15 of the IBF, WBA, or WBO. So when the WBC rankings come out, it could be that Tim Tszyu is not ranked in the top 15 of any of the organisations, which is just crazy to think about. Even crazier is that Nikita is ranked 11 by the IBF and 15 by the WBO. So there you go. And if he wins this next fight, who knows, he could be ranked in the others as well. So, all right, Daniel, how are you there, mate? Greeny versus Drew, WBA light heavy, and definitely Lucas for WBC, super middle, legit titles. I don't think the WBC or the Lucas one was for the legit title, Daniel. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where is it? I'll have a look there. Just bear with me. Where is he? Danny Green. Oh, hang on. I've lost him. I'll type in his name. I was pretty sure it was the interim title, Daniel. But again, the WBA I thought was legit. All right. Go back. What was it? 2004 from memory? Where is it? No, it wasn't there. It was. Where is it? Eric Lucas, there you go. WBC interim super middleweight title. So, all right. Naz would love Andy Lee for Tim. He built Paddy Donovan, who'll be a world champion in September. Yep, he's a good fighter, Paddy Donovan. One camp with Shiraz, and he looked improved. Parker and Whitaker, his other two, and could also win titles. Yeah, the issue is, though, Naz, look, I agree with you. I just don't see it happening. I'm not sure whether Tim is going to have what it takes to let go Uncle Igor. Now, if it was just a regular trainer, maybe, but family, and this is a big decision he's going to have to make. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I just don't think he's going to do it. I just don't think he's going to let Uncle Igor go. Just my gut feeling. I think he'll stick it out. And if he does, unfortunately, I think we're back here in 12 months' time talking about the same thing. All right, Flash. I seriously don't feel it will take 4 years. If Nikita were to get a much higher caliber trainer and has great success, I feel Tim would follow suit. I don't think Nikita's going to do it either, though, Flash. I think he should. And again, no disrespect to Uncle Igor. He's done the best that he can. But just being in the corner or as an assistant when Costa was around doesn't necessarily make you a great trainer. Johnny Lewis was a trainer at Costa, of course. Maybe they could get Johnny Lewis out of retirement, but he's in his 80s now. It's probably too much for him, isn't it? But he needs a trainer. And Andy Lee's a good call. Who said that before? Was it, it was Naz, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, he needs someone like that. People have suggested maybe a Robert Garcia. I'm not sure. He tends to like the sort of the Mexican or Latino type of fighters, does Robert Garcia, and that's cool. Probably relates more to them with their styles and everything like that. Not sure. Maybe an Abel Sanchez would be a good one for Tim. He has guided, of course, Triple G, similar style to Tim. Maybe he could be someone they could look at as well, but some decisions to make, that's for sure. Shadow Boxer, has Lucas Brown retired? No, well, he hasn't, Shadow Boxer. He came back and won on the weekend, didn't he? I'm not sure what he weighed. He looks a little bit heavier than what we've seen him in the past. Let's have a look. I'm not sure it was an officially ranked or officially sanctioned fight. No, it wasn't. It hasn't been updated on his box rec, so I'm not quite sure what it was, but he did fight on the weekend, Shadow Boxer. There is Jules. How are you, Jules? Just wanted you to know that the production quality of your travel vlogs isn't going unnoticed. At this point, you could run your own travel account. Oh, thanks, Jules. Appreciate that, mate. Look, I suppose this is one of those instances, Jules, where it's just me putting myself in your position and what would I want to see if someone was over there doing these vlogs. The problem is and maybe it helps that way, I can't do a lot of flash production stuff on it. So I just don't have time. When you're doing a 20, 25-minute video a day, it's a big day, of course, and then I've got to get back. I've got to quickly edit it, put it all together. And actually what I do is during the day, I edit it as I go. So as I film a few bits and pieces, I'll put it in and edit it. So at the end of the day, I'm just putting the last few bits and then I'll put it out. Because if I was putting all those flash production things on it, mate, it would just never be done. I'd have to do just 2 or 3 videos for the whole trip, not one every day. So it's just splicing it all together. But no, I really appreciate that, mate. I could run my own travel account. There, maybe that's what I'll do. Get over there and be a vlogger, traveling all around. I'd love to do it. You need subscribers for that, though, Jules, because they pay your way, obviously. So thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it, mate. All right. Shadow Boxer. Goodman could beat Inouye in the greatest upset ever, and the Aussie media would barely mention it. 100% Shadow Boxer. 100%. We saw it when Jeff Horn beat Pacquiao, that was a bit different. But when George Kambosos beat Teofimo Lopez, barely a mention. Having said that, when George did come out for the Haney fight, especially the first one, he did get a lot of publicity. And look, they got 42,000 people to the fight at Marvel Stadium. So that's what happens if you get out there amongst it. Unfortunately, Jai's fighting in front of 4,000 or 5,000 people because he hasn't got that at the moment. So, and that's all it takes is someone in the media to get behind Jai, and it can change everything. But I'm with you there, Shadow Boxer. Goodman could beat Inouye. And he's not going to get any airtime, mate. It'll be who of the Matildas beat this week in a friendly or something like that, and that's just life. That's what'll happen. Or who scored the most, goals on the weekend, for Geelong or Carlton or whatever it is. That's the reality where we're at, mate. I don't agree with it, but that's it. All right, Glenn, regarding Nikita, I've always thought he had more potential than Tim. Don't necessarily agree, Glenn. From what I've seen so far, maybe if he changed trainers and worked on a few things, I think Nikita has got beautiful balance, beautiful punches. He's a bigger puncher than what Tim is. He's a bit more of a killer than what Tim is. Tim's more methodical. The problem is, though, Glenn, his defense is just all over the place. He gets hit way too much. And the other thing is that sometimes you just can't teach, is that Tim has good IQ, very, very good IQ, intelligence. I'm just not sure whether Nikita is a smart fighter. And what I mean by that is that he can lose himself. So, and we've seen it in his fights. If he gets tired, if he gets rocked, if someone really challenges him, it all goes out the window and he just wants to throw down, which doesn't go well for him. Whereas you wouldn't probably see Tim do that. So that's probably the only difference I see between the two. Maybe ability-wise, they could be the same. But the difference is that Tim is methodical and calculated, and Nikita can just be a bit loose. And that's, unfortunately, no matter how skilled you are, it's not going to get you a long way if every time someone lays down the challenge or they hurt you, that you just lose all composure and just go for it. So Batman says Ball will beat Goodman. That will be that. Yeah, I tend to agree there. Batman he's a tough little bugger, is Nick Ball, and I just think he's going to be a bit too strong for Sam Goodman. Sam might have a bit of success in the first sort of 4, 5, 6 rounds, but I can just see Ball sort of getting over him and maybe even stopping him late, maybe 9, 10 rounds, something like that. Eminem, how are you there, mate? I hope Team Apataya are chasing the WBC/Badu Jack fight. I know there's been a rematch ordered, but I thought unifications trump mandatories, etc. That is correct, Eminem. If you go into a unification fight, it does trump all mandatories or voluntaries. But Badu Jack's got to want it, mate. And by all accounts, I don't think he wants it. I think Badu Jack, I know he's got the rematch with whatever his name was. What was his name? WBC. Where is he? Noel Michaelian. I think that's how you pronounce it. But yeah, I don't think he wants to fight Eminem. And I did actually ask Mick Francis about this, and I don't think they have a lot of. Well, I was just going to say maybe they don't have a lot of interest in Badu Jack. That was before Ramirez had his shoulder operated on too. So maybe it could be plan B. But I just get the impression that Badu Jack wants a Jake Paul fight or something like that. I'm not sure whether he wants Jai Pataya. But if he did, it should be pretty easy to put together, you would think, based on that, for sure. Drew says, I did say at best, and even then he would need to stay very active. Oh, this is 4 years, fighting 2 or 3 fights a year and getting past actual world-class contenders. I think it's over. Look, Drew, I don't agree with the 4 years, and I don't agree with the 2 or 3 fights per year. And the reason I say that is you're only as good as your last fight. If Tim fights at the end of the year, well, I don't think he'll fight by the end of the year, but let's say he does, or the start of 2026, and strings together two relatively impressive fights, I guarantee you he'll be back in the mix. I guarantee it. Like George Kambosos. Didn't really do anything to deserve the fight with Hitchens, but he got there because of his past achievements. The right person at the right time. Obviously, he's got a lot of personality about him. Has George brought a lot to the event. Now, of course, on fight night that didn't obviously translate into a stellar performance from George. But you got to remember, it's not just based on merit. And George Kambosos did not deserve that fight with Hitchens, but you know what? He brought more to that fight than some of those other opponents around at the same time could have brought. And Hitchens bought in on that. Okay, so yep, I agree. George was nowhere near as good as some of those other contenders out there. Guys like, if I can have a quick look, where is he, junior welterweight? So, well, guys like, Liam Paro might have deserved a rematch. You've got, who else is out there? Well, actually, wasn't that many. Actually, I see John Manu's ranked number 13 by the IBF. There you go. you know, Sabrina Matias and Gary Russells and Teofimo Lopez, and I get all that. They obviously had other things going at the time, so he couldn't obviously aim for them. But George Kambosos made the most sense at that time. So you get Tim Tszyu to have a couple of fights. He's still a name. People still talk about him. And the one thing I'll say is that watch YouTube and a lot of the social media channels and all that sort of stuff, there was a lot of coverage about Tim Tszyu and where it's gone wrong and what's next and all this sort of stuff. More so than I think you see with a lot of fighters that lose. I didn't see any of this when George lost. I didn't see any of this when a lot of these other fighters lost, about this analysis of what went wrong and what's next. A lot of them's like, he lost, that's it. You know, we saw videos on, was it Paulie Malignaggi and Chris Algieri when they do, it was a Pro Box, a whole segment based on Tim Tszyu, and you don't see that. So that shows me that he has still got cred. A lot of people, for the wrong reasons, of course, a lot of people saying, well, where did it all go wrong? But it goes to show that he's the esteem that he's held in. So I've got no doubt if he has a couple of good wins, 100% he'll be back in the mix, Drew. Whether he deserves to be or not is another question. That's another conversation. And I'm with you. If it was all by rights and what is right and what is wrong, you're right. It might take him 3 or 4 years to really be back in the mix, but as we all know in boxing, that's not the case. It is what makes sense at the right time, and Tim Tszyu could quite easily make the most sense. And here's an example for you, Drew. Let's just say Tim fights at the end of the year or start of 2026, fights again mid-year and looks okay, gets himself ranked again, just say by the WBO, being a former champion. You would say that, you know, he might get back in the top 10. Who's to say that, say, Xander Zayas is around by then and not really getting those big fights, still only 23, 24 by then, or he'd be 23. Not really ready for the Murtazalievs and Fundoras and these types of guys, maybe. And they need someone like Tim Tszyu at that stage as a voluntary defence. Not really many other fighters in that division that are maybe ready or are marketable. And he's in the right spot at the right time. And Xander Zayas says, hey, he's had 2 wins. He's ranked in the top 15 or 10, whatever it might be. I'm going to fight him. That's how it happens. And I'm sure you've seen it yourself. So don't write Tim off. Now, again, does he deserve it? Probably not. Is he ready for it? Maybe not. But you just don't know. Andy, what do you got there, mate? Jai seriously lacked deserved recognition, sadly. Yeah, I'm with you, Andy. I shake my head about it as well. What's that? It wouldn't surprise me. This is ball beating. Sam was talking about how trash our media is over here. Yep. Haven't got a clue, Shadow Boxer. They have not got a clue here as far as boxing media goes. And today was a classic example. Watching the main event interview with Nikita. Nothing with Nikita. He was great, Nikita. He said exactly what he needed to say. And I suppose by that extent, George Rose said exactly what he wanted to say, but the whole thing was just to gear up towards Michael and Zarafa and Nikita, and I don't know. I just shake my head at the Australian boxing public. I really do. All right, Cal Jane, would Tim beat Zayas or how he fought? And if Brock wins, will Tim fight him next or go to England and to do with Jive Zerto in hospital should vacate belts when he's right, be first in line? I think Tim would have been a great chance to beat Zayas, Cal, and I said that in my video this morning, the sliding doors moment. Zayas has now got the belt that Tim had a year ago or a year and a bit ago. And I think it would have been a great fight. If Brock wins, will Tim fight? No, Cal, Tim's not fighting Brock. Nikita, maybe. Nikita and Brock, that's a very, very marketable fight. And all those, I suppose, gullible fight fans out there will eat it up. And No Limit will do a fantastic job of promoting it up, even though probably both fighters are, in my opinion, not necessarily top 15, especially Brock. But that seems to be more the fight for me, is Brock versus Nikita. Tim, look, I think Tim is going to be all in or nothing. I think he's going to want to be at the world level. And if he can't, that'll be it. I would think that Tim will give this one more crack at the world level. And he'll probably go the way I said before, the two sort of, let's just say, Joey Spencer types, and then I think he'll get in a position to maybe have another crack. I don't think he'd leap straight into a title shot, unless it was maybe someone like Zayas, as I just said. But I think he'll have maybe 2 more fights against Joey Spencer types, and then it'll be, all right, we're going to go for a top 10 154-pounder, And then if he beats them, maybe they go again. And if not, it could be curtains. So I don't think he comes back to Australia. And I still don't think, just a gut feel, I still don't, well, I was just going to say, no, I'll take that back. I think the way there's a Zarafa fight goes is if he has those couple of tune-up fights, at least one, but preferably two, then I think they'll see where he's at. And if there's an opportunity, like I said, to go into the top 10 or 15 of an organisation and have a fight with a legit opponent, but if something's not really happening or whatever, I think that's the time where they'll target a Michael Zarafa if he's still around. So I'm thinking this time next year, maybe even a little bit later, is the earliest we'll see Tim maybe fight a Zarafa or a top 10 opponent. I think you'll have two Joey Spencer type fights in the meantime. How long is Zerdo expected to be out for? I heard a long time, Eminem. It could be, I don't think he's even going to start his rehab for about, is it 6 months or something? I think they said before he'd be back into training. So time for Jai to have probably a couple of more fights there, mate. Double G, did you see Tony Harrison fight at 160? Sadly, his speech seems to have declined since he was in Oz. He did say, though, on multiple interviews that Fundora is a tough night for anyone at 154. No, I didn't see it, Double G. He was on the undercard of Clarissa Shields, wasn't he? No, I didn't see it, mate. And I did see some of his interviews before the fight, and I'm with you. Not good, not great. I think that there needs to be more done to keep these guys out of the ring. I think if you're having cognitive tests and all this sort of stuff, it's not that hard to see that someone's battling with some issues from punches. As I said, Shane Mosley's one, Tony Harrison's another, Dillian White, someone said before as well. So, Glenn, yep, our media is so lazy. Jai will never get a profile. No, he won't, Glenn. And I hate to say it, but that's boxing in this country. Real boxing writers write about Jai regularly and gladly. Those that probably don't really appreciate how good the guy is won't give him a lick of recognition. That's my point, Daniel. And you're with Max Boxing. Anthony Cox is with Ring Magazine. As I said, it's not you guys I'm talking about. It's the ones that are actually in a position to have an impact. The Peter Bedell's and Brendan Bradford's, and there's a couple others out there as well. They're the guys that really need to get behind Jai, and I know their hands are tied, so I'm not blaming them entirely. They get told what to write about and who to cover. What I'm saying is it's those probably the publications that need to pull their finger out of their asses and get behind all Australian boxers, not just those that are with the No Limit stable. So certainly not directed at someone like yourself, mate, because I know you do a fair bit, as does Anthony and everyone else out there. But until those mainstream guys really get behind it, nothing changes. They do, mate. Richard, they love Harry Garside. He's a great story, isn't he? Drew, I agree with you about Opataya. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the keys to the Media Boys Club. 100%, Drew. Jules, have we confirmed if Tim or his team stopped the fight? If it was Tim, I'm actually proud of him for doing it, copying it in the media, but 5 more rounds like that could have ended his career. And that was my point as well, Jules. And again, look, that's why I probably took exception so much to people saying he was a quitter. Now, I said he retired. There's a big difference between retired and quit. Now, retired just means you've got nothing more to give, and it's a smart decision to pull either yourself out or the corner pulls you out. Quitter is what we've seen. What was it? The amount of opponents against Lomachenko and Saburo and Matias, who they just say, oh, geez, this guy's just too tough. I've had enough. I'm just going to quit. That's different to what Tim went through. Tim was physically spent. He'd just given it his all. He had nothing left to give. So that is retiring. And that's why I won't cop all the shit that he's copying by people at the moment, especially from people that have never been in that position. I will not accept the opinion that he quit from someone that's never been there. Now, if I had someone that had been there in that scenario and battled through it, and they said Tim was a quitter, okay, well, I might listen to what he has to say. But all these people, the armchair experts that say that he quit, well, how do you know? Were you the one sitting on the stool in between the 7th and 8th rounds? No, you weren't. So that's my point. And that's why I'm giving Tim enough cred to say that he retired, he'd had nothing left to give, and that is the end of the story. Now, I don't know, well, actually, I don't know 100%, Jules, but from what I heard is that the corner wanted to stop the fight and Tim, let's just say Tim didn't strongly oppose their views, so they stopped it. That's what I heard, is that the corner said, Tim, mate, you've had enough. And I suppose they did put it to him, and Tim, without probably the response of yes or no, they just said, no, it's over. So, and look, again, I know the team and Tim and everyone else that have copped it, but I've got no ill feeling towards Tim at all about it, because you know what, again, I wasn't sitting on the stool, so I don't know. What I do know is that I've seen this numerous times in boxing where fighters haven't nothing to give, and that's what Tim looked like to me. A totally spent fighter. Totally spent, who was just had an empty tank and was copping a lot of punishment. So I think you've got to take that into account before you just say, oh, he's a quitter. I just won't take that from people that have never been there and done it. So, all right, Ryan, how are you there, mate? Jai needs to go to heavyweight to get more buzz. As good as he is, the weight division doesn't get talked about as much as some of the other divisions. He does need to go to heavyweight, Ryan, and he will. Again, I spoke to Mick Francis in New York about it. Hope he doesn't mind me saying, but he just said, look, preferably it was one more fight before going to heavyweight. That was the Zurdo Ramirez fight. Now, if he doesn't have that, I don't think he's going to go straight away. I still think he has one more fight at cruiserweight. Now, preferably it could be Badu Jack, but if it's not, maybe he does fight a Billum Smith or, where are we? Cruiserweight. It's got to be a name. I don't think he'll want to fight Shinkara, who's still the number one challenger. I think it would want to be a Billum Smith or a Badu Jack. I'm probably thinking, well, maybe David Benavidez comes up, which I doubt. They're probably the only two in the division I could probably see Jai hanging around, but I still think he has one more fight and then goes up to heavyweight. What's that? That woman screaming at the Harrison fight did my head in. Yeah, I didn't see that, mate. Glenn says they do love Harry, but he's done a good job with the media and has a great personality that counts. Yeah, Glenn, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. And you're right. If anyone's done it perfectly, it's Tari Garside. Has played it beautifully. You know, he flutters the eyelids or the eyelashes at the media, and they absolutely love it. He's got that personality. He's got the quirky background, and he speaks really, really well. And some of the things he talks about with, his different beliefs and everything else, the media just absolutely eat it up. So again, mate, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, with what they're doing with him. What I'm saying is what is wrong is that while they're giving someone like Harry all the love, someone like Jai gets nothing. So they both deserve the same amount of attention, just in different ways. And Jai Pattaya getting nothing is just an absolute travesty in this country. It really is. I honestly believe the biggest flaw in Tim's game is bad luck. I don't know, Jules. I am with you as far as the sliding doors and what could have happened last year. That's not really luck. Well, let's just break it down quickly. All right, so Thurman pulls out of the fight last year. That's bad luck. But then agreeing to take on Fundora, is that bad luck or is that just bad decision-making, bad management? That's the question. Then whatever, and then in the Fundora fight, yep, bad luck, what happened with the cut. 100% bad luck. But is it bad luck that his corner didn't stop the fight when they had the opportunity to, and he kept his titles and lived to fight another day and put that fight behind him? He wouldn't have fought Fundora a second time, I don't think. I reckon he would have stepped up and fought Crawford. Now, again, probably would have ended well for him in hindsight, but still, I got no doubt he would have fought Crawford instead of Madrimov. That's what could have happened. So, yeah, bad luck getting the cut, but again, it's not bad luck that his corner didn't stop the fight, and he kept his belts, stayed out for the majority of the year, and came back and maybe had that Crawford fight. He's getting a Murtazaliyov fight coming off a loss, another world title fight coming off a loss. Is that bad luck? That's great luck. What's bad luck is what happened in the fight. Well, it's not bad luck, sorry. Good luck getting the fight, but he was the one that got hit with a left hook and dropped. That's not bad luck. That's just bad skills or bad decision-making, whatever you might want to take it, or however you might want to take it. And then coming off a Murtazaliyov fight and getting a soft kill over Joey Spencer, then getting another world title fight, is that bad luck? I think that's great luck. So I don't subscribe to that, Jules. Yes, bad luck in a couple of the situations, but he's had some really, really good luck. Unfortunately, Tim just hasn't been able to take it. He hasn't been able to, I suppose, deal with the bad luck that he's had, and he certainly hasn't had the opportunity to grab the good luck that he's had. Tim is still a beast, just been so unlucky. Well, I'll just address that. Richard, I'd like to see him have a bigger crack at the boxing, Glenn, but spot on, mate. Have I missed that one? Sorry about that. OG, are you listening, Big J? Okay, I'm gathering Big J hasn't got a lot of fans on here at the moment. I'm not sure whether he's commented. He's probably a bit further down. Sorry about that. I don't want everyone getting stuck in the Big J, by the way. He's entitled to his opinion. Again, I don't agree with a lot of it, but hey, it's a free country. Batman, I was shouting so loud in the arena. Me and his sister was last in there. I didn't actually hear his sister. I hope you had a good night, Batman. I forgot that you were there. I had great seats there, Batman. I'm not sure whether you saw my videos. I was right, and I always get the same seat. I've said it's one seat. Then it goes 1, 2, 3 sort of fans out, and I had the one seat right on the race where they all come out. And it was really funny because, of course, everyone's trying to get over there to get pictures and stuff, and the security, it was good for probably the first 3 or 4 fights, and then they really knuckled down, and they all had to stand. There was almost fights in the crowd because the security came. I think they needed like 6 security guards to keep people away from the race. And encroaching on our seats. I was pretty much sharing a seat with about 3 different people at one stage. They were all in my little area. But the security got really pissed, and they brought the half a dozen guards down and had them in different spots to keep people back. But there were almost fights because the security said to the people that were trying to get photos, and quite rightly so, I did feel from them. They're trying to have their phones, trying to get photos of everyone coming out, and and we all want to do that. But they did, I think the security said to a lot of them, okay, just relax. When Manny comes out or Tim and Fundora comes out, we'll all duck down so you can get your cameras up and get your photos. And then what was happening was a few of them started to actually encroach a little bit forward. And then other people like, that was all on, and they were trying to, and it was a bit of push and shove, and it was actually quite comical. But that's what the extent that people will go to. But I'm glad you had a good night there anyway, Batman. Where are we? Drew. It's okay that Tim isn't as good as what the expectations suggested. Life is full of stories where we all fall short. Most of the loudest critics have achieved at least 100%, Drew. That is exactly my thoughts. And my thing with Tim is, okay, he hasn't measured up. Well, so be it. We still love Tim, and he's represented the country with distinction. Is it such a crime that you've fallen short? I don't understand it. That everyone is like, well, so many people have jumped ship because he just couldn't measure up. He gave his heart and his soul, and he just wasn't good enough. We have to accept it. And again, it's all good to have the constructive criticism, but when they actually come for him personally, I don't wear that. And you're right there, Drew. Most of the loudest critics have achieved the least. Yep. Be interesting to see a lot of these people in the flesh, Drew. What do they say? The Dorito stained T-shirts, a lot of them. All right, Glenn. He's training right now. He's Harry. I know his coach very well. Who is he training with, Glenn? I know he's not, because who's he with these days? I'm not sure. Anyway, Richard. I saw his last fight, but that's great to hear, and cheers for the info. Trevor, what are your thoughts on the Floyd Masson John Parker bout on Wednesday night? It doesn't look a bad card. Good question there, Trevor. Let's just have a quick look at the card. I did have a look at the press conference today. Got to get better audio if they're going to do press conferences, though, guys. I could barely hear some of them. All right. And it was pretty funny. You can tell a few of the fighters had never been to a press conference before. Always like to see that when they're a little bit starstruck. All right, Floyd Masson, John Parker. I don't know anything about John Parker, Trevor, if I'm being honest. He's 11-1. Floyd Masson is 15-2. So where's he from? He's from New Zealand. He did lose to Dylan Wright back in 2022. Not a great record, mate. Not a great record at all. 11-1. Let's have a quick look. Goes back to 2016. First guy was 2-3. Then it was a debut. Then it was 2-5-1. Then it was another debut. 2-1. Debut. 0-1. 2-5. 2-6. Debut. 1-2-1. His last guy, though, we'll say was 11-0. So hopefully that's a better indication of his talents. But so the rest of the card, we've got, I don't really know a lot about these guys, if I'm being honest. Jazia Pautoa versus Jack Gregory. Jacob Clenshaw, Calvin Jensen, Callum Peters, great to see him back. Marcus Hayward, should give him a few rounds, hopefully. Hunter Ione, Ken Aiken. Hunter always comes to fight. It should be entertaining. Frank Amato, Jeremiah Tapu Ui. Don't really know much about those guys. And Matthew Hosking, 1-0, no relation, against Jaden Vasika. Yeah, I don't know too much about it to comment, Trevor, but good to see Floyd Masson back. I love watching him fight. I'll do a bit of research tomorrow, I think, on John Parker and see if I can find him on YouTube. All right. Tim could easily still be unbeaten and probably have a title still. Tim and the team was confident they could beat anyone at 154. No shame in going for glory and coming up short. He can still come again. I agree, Batman. Yep, I agree. That's what I said before. I think still time for Tim. He just has to do it right. Jules. Only casuals criticising Tim's performance. Yes, Fundora is long and Tim struggled with distance, but he's still got the Fundora better than anyone has, even Mendoza. This version of Fundora is a monster. Definitely improved a lot, Jules. Definitely improved a lot. And I did say in my review of the fight, if you watched it, that the biggest issue I saw with Tim in the fight was he was pulling straight back in a straight line. So he started in Fundora's range, not in his own, and then he was pulling out 6 inches even further, which made it just impossible to come back against Fundora. But the more I think about it, and I still stand by that, the more I think about it, I would have thought if I was training Tim, it would have also been to get in close, but also to go around him, give him angles. So come at him from outside the shoulders, not straight down the middle. Because Fundora with those long arms, it's just so easy for him to pick people off from long range. But if Tim or whoever was fighting him, and you watch the Mendoza fight as well, when Mendoza hits him with a left hook, he's actually outside his right shoulder. And he comes in over the top and he's outside. And I just would have thought maybe he was conscious of the elbows again. I don't know. But the more I think about it, I think you've got to attack Fundora from outside the shoulders, not coming straight ahead. It's just impossible. It's almost, I suppose, if you look at it, in a war or something, and you're attacking, and you just attack them straight on instead of from the flanks, and that's the sort of the way I saw Fundora, or the way to beat Fundora is attacking from outside coming in, not the corridor, which is the shoulders. So anyway, easy sitting in his chair anyway. Batman says Nikita isn't more talented at all. I agree. Rayleigh Frame, how are you, Rayleigh? What's your thoughts on Nikita being the main card instead of Zarafa? I like Nikita, but thought Zarafa has done more thus far. When has that ever counted, Rayleigh? Nikita is the name. Nikita is the A side. Zarafa is the dance partner. If Michael Zarafa was the main event, and look, you're right, probably deserves to be ahead of Nikita based on achievements, but at the end of the day, Nikita's the name. Nikita is the A side. The whole show is based around Nikita. And if Michael Zarafa is headlining the pay-per-views, how many of those do you think they're going to sell? Not many at all. People won't buy it out of spite, even with Nikita on the card. That's why, Rayleigh. So this doesn't come down to who's the biggest name or who's got the best resume or the most experience or whatever, or who deserves it the most. It comes down to who, when they put on the poster, is going to sell the pay-per-views, and that's Nikita Tszyu, not Michael Zarafa. A lot of people see this as a bonus. Well, we've got Nikita. We also might see that Flog Zarafa get knocked out. That's the way a lot of people look at it. Not me. Michael, if you're watching, not me. I'm just saying. But that's the way a lot of people look at it. That, we're going to tune in for Nikita. Oh, and Zarafa's on there as well. Let's hope he gets flogged. Oh, and Brock Jarvis is on there as well. Let's see if he can come back. So that's the way they build it. Doesn't necessarily come down to who deserves to have the headliner or not. All right, Drew, not trying to be mean, all right, I don't like the sound of this, but I just feel like Nikita's all-action face-first style is tailor-made for elite fighters. His defense feels and looks like a huge red flag at this stage, and that's why I said earlier, Drew, I'm hoping he takes something out of what happened to Tim to make himself a better fighter, because at the moment, from what I've judged on his last probably half a dozen fights, or most of his career actually, he needs to change it up, or I hate to say it because I'm a massive fan of Nikita, I think it ends up with him getting stopped and beaten or knocked out badly. So, and I don't want that to happen. I think too much of Nikita Great guy, very, very good fighter, but he needs to improve in certain areas. And maybe this is the first step towards that. This is his first international opponent. Not a lot to offer as far as danger for Nikita. These are probably more the type of fights they need to put him in with. But having said that, they put him in with, who's the guy that Zarafa fought as well? Danilo Creati. Had to be the biggest soft touch ever and gave Nikita fits. So this is the problem they've got with Nikita. He hurt Nikita, had him going a few times. This is a guy that couldn't bruise a grape. So they've got to be careful with him. I think this guy should be custom made for Nikita. Should make Nikita look really good. But I'm with you there, Drew. Unless he changes things up, it's not going to be a pleasant road ahead for Nikita, I don't think. So, who else have we got there? Nectar of the Gods. Some American friends of mine that know a lot more about boxing than me reckon Nikita is better than Tim. I'm not so certain. Nah, I don't agree, Nectar. Double G, haha, and Seinfeld also said, people, they are the worst. The Aussies who spit venom at Tim should head over to Tszyu Gym and let him know face-to-face their thoughts on him. Don't think they'll be as brave, Double G. I think we've just got to accept there's a few differences. There's a few people that probably like myself that love Tim but are going to have their say in a constructive way. Nothing personal, just a personal view, and that's it. And I'm sure there's a lot of you out there in the same boat. Then you got the others that just don't like him, that don't like what he represents, don't like him personally or professionally, whatever it might be. They just don't like him and take great pleasure in what happened to him. And then you get others who are just ignorant shitheads who just have nothing better to do than get online and insult people that they have no right insulting. So it's just the world we live in. And I think since the invention of social media, it's something we've got to know and accept, I suppose. I don't agree with it, but that's just life. I mean, I've been a lot of time. This is the thing I don't understand, that people actually take the time to actually comment. I've seen things and I might think one thing or another, but do I go out of my way? Some of it might be pleasant, by the way, about some people or whatever it might be, or footy teams, whatever. But to go out of my way and actually write it on a social media site, yeah, why bother? Why bother? Anyway. All right, Glenn. Sorry, Batman. Tim, at that point in his career, wasn't hitting the canvas every fight. He looked much sharper. Yeah, I don't think there's any coincidence, though, Batman, that since the level of opposition has gone up, then he has hit the canvas and hasn't looked as good. Glenn says, maybe, but I'm taking potential. I just see a bit more in Nikita. I'm hoping you're right there, Glenn. And look, to be honest with you, if Nikita fixed those defensive flaws and maybe the brain fades that he has, you're probably right. Ability-wise, he probably matches Tim, but all that ability means nothing if you haven't got it upstairs. If you lose your cool every time something happens or things don't go the right way or someone gets in your face or hurts you or you're a little bit tired, then you're not going anywhere. And that's probably why, again, I put the big differential between the two is Tim a little bit flustered against Barkram and Fundora, but that's to be expected. But apart from that, he's always been a really calm, cool, calculator type of guy, and I just haven't seen that with Nikita. But if he did adopt that, then you never know. He's just a bit of a hothead for me, Nikita, and I'm just hoping he can sort of galvanise it all. Yeah, Shadow Boxer, Mosley talking now is very sad. He's been that way for a while, actually. All right, Batman, Nikita wouldn't believe you for a second, or Tim, trust I know who's more talented. Maybe. Glenn says, moves his head. I think he's probably got a bit more power. I just see a bit more in him. Let's hope so, Glenn. But as I said, so far I don't agree at this stage. But let's hope he learns a little bit from what happened to Tim and he uses that to improve his own style. Batman says, couldn't agree. Are we going to have a Batman versus Glenn segment again here? Couldn't disagree more, says Batman. About Glenn, results of late are changing the perception. Tim going into the Fundora 1 fight was a more polished and elite fighter than Nikita will be, just my opinion. I do agree with you, Batman. That's my thoughts as well. What's that? Any chance of a shout out for my son, Tom? In a bad way for a month so far. I'm back in the Children's Hospital for the 5th time in the last couple of days. Getting poked and prodded, fluid drained, etc., etc. Trooper. Mate, 100% Naz. yeah, big shout out to your son, Tom. Hope he's doing well, mate. And I hate to hear that kids are in the hospital. So, yeah, all the very best, Naz, and keep us updated, mate. And hope it all works out, mate. So, yes, all the best. And a big shout out to Tom. All right, Batman. Tim has much better technique and had much better defense against domestic opposition. If Nikita had fought Tim's opposition, I'm sure you wouldn't be saying this. It's a good point, Batman, because when Tim fought domestic level fighters, absolutely blew them away. Didn't have one bit of trouble with any of them. Wasn't rocked, wasn't really disturbed by any of the fighters, including someone like a Jeff Horn or a Darcy Ritchie. The late Darcy Ritchie, rest in peace, Darcy. Who else did he fight? So many good fighters in Australia. Dennis Hogan, and just made mincemeat of them all. Barely lost a round. Whereas Nikita has had life and death struggles against fighters that should not be going 2 rounds with him. So that's the difference. It's a good point there, Batman. All right, Ray Lee. Could Tim have a neurological issues if not psychological? And he didn't seem as sharp and quick. I went back and rewatched some of his past fights again. What's your thoughts? I did the same thing, Ray Lee. I actually went back and watched a few of his fights as well and a lot of highlights as well. It's hard to go through every single fight. I think you can gain a lot just by watching highlights. And I probably watched about 6 fights. It's the highlights. More noticeably the Jeff Horn fight. I think that's when he really looked and was confident, within himself. And I know Jeff was probably custom made for his style. But look, it's easy to say that it didn't look as sharp or as quick and all that sort of stuff. But when your level of opposition go up, you just don't look as good as a fighter, do you? So I don't know. I am worried a little bit neurologically. It's not like he's just been beaten on points or has been beaten on points, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's just been outpointed. I mean, even in the Fundora first fight, he did still cop a lot of punishment. We all saw the Murtazalia fight and how much he copped in that. And they were brutal knockdowns too, all one-punch knockdowns, a lot of them. And then the Fundora fight was that accumulation of a lot of punches. So I do worry a little bit about that, Ray Lee, and I'm sure they'll get him checked out. But as far as not looking as sharp and as quick, that happens when your level of competition goes from here to here. So I'm not really stressed about that. I suppose the proof will be in the pudding when he does fight someone lesser down again, whether he does look like that fighter from a couple of years ago. What's his Tony? My question. When you're preparing for a fight, how many people do you invite 90 minutes before the ring walk? Well, I was only an amateur, Tony, so a little bit different to these guys. These are professionals. I didn't have that luxury, Tony, because when I was fighting the amateurs, you're sharing a locker room with probably about another 10 fighters. So sometimes you get your own one, but when I fought in my hometown, I had my own change rooms, but normally you're sharing a big change room with the other red corner or blue corner, whatever it might be. So it didn't really worry me too much, mate, if I'm being honest. But I know every fighter's different. I know a lot of fighters just want to be totally focused and have no one around, just the inner sanctum, and that's probably the majority of fighters. But others like a bit of a party atmosphere and like a few people around. I mean, you'll probably look at even Tim and Nikita if you want to compare a couple of fighters. I get the impression that Tim really likes that real close-knit team in there and lock everyone out and no distractions and to keep it really focused. And then I get the impression that Nikita's a bit of, whatever. Want to let him in. I don't give a toss. Even when he walks out, he's walking out to YMCA and all these different songs. I mean, everyone's different. But for me, I didn't really care either, Tony, to be honest. I didn't really, actually, the only thing I didn't like is probably people being, the whole joking, laughing and around me. It's just like, mate, if you want to do that, go somewhere else. Don't mind you're in here. But just, we're trying to be serious here. So just keep the chatter down and that sort of stuff. But everyone's different. I gave him $1, says a huge fan of B-Hop. That dude had every trick in the book. Yeah, he certainly was a magician, mate. He was a great fighter. Glenn, better technique, question mark. Haven't seen that the last 4 fights, and I repeat, potential, says Glenn. All right. Batman, I do like Nikita, and he has talent, but I do feel Tim is the better fighter, regardless of current form. And I do agree with you again, Batman. Drew, what move does Opetime make next, given that Zerdo is injured and Badu Jack is pricing this out himself out of the market. Yeah, I sort of said before, Drew, I think it's one more fight at cruiserweight. Billam Smith, to me, ticks the boxes as far as a good fighter that he could fight with a bit of a name, bit of a backing. That'd be a good money fight, especially if they did it in England, and then go to heavyweight after that. That would be the fight I would make. I would pursue Billam Smith. Does he have a chance against Stry? Absolutely not. But it's a marketable fight. The Poms will lead it up. I think if he did fight Billam Smith, it would have to be in England. Bring him out to Australia, and it's no difference to the Squayo fight. No one will really care. No one will get the drama of it all. Go to England, and we're talking probably 20 or 30,000 people there. So that's the difference, and a massive payday. So that's it, Drew. And then go to heavyweight after that, and go your hardest. Batman says he didn't see better technique from Nikita in comparison to Nikita. Okay, let's move on. That doesn't make sense to me, but you guys carry on amongst yourselves. Jai needs to start dancing and appear on Dancing with the Stars. Yep, that's right. All right. Andrew Ryan. How are you, Andrew? Welcome to the show. Yep, you're late, but you're here. That's good. That's the main thing. All right, Batman, imagine how Tim would have looked against that level, and Nikita the same. Nothing against anyone. I actually got a selfie with both guys while in Vegas. Big fan of both, but clear gap in levels of ability. I'm still with you there, Batman. Hey, and Glenn, mate, all good, mate. You've got your opinion. I'm not going to argue with you, but I just tend to agree a little bit more with Batman. All right, Ray Lee, I really hope Tim can overcome the setbacks and make some changes. He still has many supporters believing in him. I think he could possibly beat Zayas. I'm with you there, Ray Lee, and I said again this morning, I think he's a good opportunity now to beat Zayas. Now, I was going to have a quick look at the rankings, the big guys in there at super welterweight or junior middleweight, 154. I think, look, Murtazayev will count him out for the moment. Fundora will count at the moment. Zayas, I think he'd be a good opportunity or a good chance to win. He'd need a couple of fights beforehand. I think he'd be a good chance to beat him. Who are the other major players? Jesus Ramos Jr., yeah, not a good fight for Tim at this stage, I wouldn't have thought. Boachuk, I would say no. Conor Benn, no. Keith Thurman, yeah. Yep. I don't subscribe to Thurman would kill Tszyu. No, I think Styles. Tim would do okay against Thurman. Don't worry about it. Let's not get too excited about Keith Thurman beating Brock Jarvis. I'm certainly not. Who else was there? Madrimov, probably not at the moment for Tim. I don't like that fight. But anyway, hey, let's not worry about Tim at the moment as far as what's next, because what he's got to do next is get his head back in the game and decide what he wants to do. So, all right, Drew, really, it's not a bad publicity stunt on Dancing with the Stars, but I just can't see Jai wearing tight pants and a skirt. That is 2 sizes too small for him and doing the tango. Well, me either. Can you imagine if those long days of shooting and getting a bit niggly, and you wouldn't want to go near Jai, would you? Because he can get a little bit narky sometimes. So Glenn says, okay, I'm not arguing who's the better fighter now, but I see more potential in Nikita. Okay. Well said there, Glenn. Yep. I understand what you're saying there. Yes, Glenn, good comment. Probably the best one. Fine, we disagree with Batman. All right, Naz, changing subject. Paro versus Pitbull in the future. Get a big name under his belt to build himself up to a title shot. Geez, that'd be a good fight, wouldn't it? Tough fight for Liam. I think he's a good chance to win that fight, Naz. I think he could win that fight, Liam. Extremely tough fight. I would love to see Liam, apart from that one, with Teofimo Lopez. That would be a good fight. I think he's got the ability to beat Teofimo Lopez as well. Now, who else is there? So we've got Hitchens, we've already been there, of course. Russell, beatable. Matias, he's already been there as well. Lopez, yep. Looking at all those guys, it's Lopez, or maybe Cruz, like he said there. Some good fights there for Naz. And for Paro. The good thing is, though, he's got potentially a rematch with Hitchens, although it was probably one-sided in the end, so maybe not. But he has got that Matias fight there as well, the WBC belt. Could he get a crack at the green belt? And Isaac Cruz is the interim. So where is he at the moment, by the way? He's ranked top-rated in the IBF. He's Liam Paro. WBA got the heads up their ass as well, not rated with them. Number 4 with the WBC. And number 4 with the WBO. He's actually 5 for the WBC, but there's a vacant spot in there as well. So he's ranked very, very highly, is Liam Paro. So within the next 12 months, he'll get another shot. Make no mistake about that. Be waiting for this one, Glenn. And Canelo sucks. Yep. All right. We'll keep... Matty. How are you, Matty? Not getting dropped first round, which usually happens to both Tszyu, would be a good lesson for Nikita moving forward in his career. Yes. Good call, Matty. Also, dropping the blind loyalty and hiring elite trainers. That is the question, Matty. I would just like to see, I was just going to say I'd like to see maybe a little bit more patient in the first couple of rounds so they don't get dropped. Tim is normally very patient. Well, not against Bakram Murtazaliev, but against Fundora and all the opponents, he normally starts slow. The problem is his body starts slow, but so does his mind, which then obviously gets him caught. Nikita sort of gets caught because he's a little bit careless. But again, Matty, let's hope Nikita learns from Tim and you become a better fighter because of it. And also, like you said, their blind loyalty. He needs to hire elite trainers. And that goes for both boys. All right, Dennis, you're right about the mainstream media with Jai. I was chatting with a mate who's into sport. And he didn't even know who I was talking about when I mentioned Jai. Yeah, and this is what I'm exactly talking about, Dennis. It's an absolute travesty. Batman, what else dynamic in his offence? Reckless, off balance at time, lack of composure. Okay, so he's still talking about Tim and Nikita. Nectar of the guys. Nikita needs to get away from Uncle Igor. Tim as well needs an experienced boxer, head coach Robert Garcia. Yep, as I said before, maybe Abel Sanchez would be good as well. Batman says Norman Jr. will beat Haney. Yep, tend to agree, Batman. Was it Tszyu? Turns his hips, understands his weight transfers to a degree. I like the angle of his legs, suffer like a fighter. Yep, good call, Glenn. There's more to it than just natural ability. It's all those shifting your body weight and position of coming in and all that sort of stuff. Nectar of the Gods agrees. Norman Jr. definitely. Norman beats Haney. I'd say Bash, but Linda will have a shot at me. Oh, I know that Bash it. Go at you there, Glenn, or a shot. I don't think he bashes Haney, Glenn. I think Haney's a chance to win, but I'm going to go with Norman. So I certainly don't think he bashes Haney. What's that, Ryan? You need to get a gig on a telecast, mate. We never know, but as I've said a few times, mate, there's a difference between sitting in my studio here on YouTube than sitting on live TV, mate. So I'm not going to certainly throw shade at those that are on there. But, yeah, I'd put my hand up for it, Ryan. At least I'd sort of have an idea what I'm talking about anyway. All right, Richard, I should just call Paul Kent again to do the role of the special comments. I didn't mind him, Richard. I know he's a rugby guy, a rugby league guy, but I didn't mind him. Unfortunately, Richard, he's crossed the line, didn't do what was politically correct. He got into a fight or something in the street or something, someone was having a go, and whatever, I'm not 100% sure. And he's been cancelled, Richard, but I'm with you. I didn't mind him. I didn't know who he was, but even though he was a rugby league guy, I actually thought he knew what he was talking about with the boxing. So, yeah, I think they could do worse than him, mate. But even better, bring back Jeff Fennick and Barry Michael. I know Barry might come back, but Jeff's certainly not coming back after what he said about the head of Fox Sports. What do you got there, Drew? People might think I'm crazy, and I know it won't happen, but if Jeff Fennick was available and in better health, I think he would be a perfect trainer for Tim. Jeff is boxing smart, experienced, and blunt. Yeah, I think he could be an improvement of what he's got now, Drew. Maybe is he enough to take him, where we think he can get to? I'm not so sure, but I think it'll be an improvement of what he's got now anyway. Batman, Tim is willing to fight anyone. Maybe that Liam Smith fight who looked absolutely finished now makes sense for a comeback lead up to Zarafa. Yep, not a bad call, Batman. I think he'll stay domestic for a while, though, Batman, unless, of course, they bring Liam Smith out here. David, bought and read Barry Michael's book as soon as it was released up here in Queensland. Great read for any real boxing fan, and what a tough man he is. 100%, David. Yeah, buy the book, guys. I was really a little bit pissed I missed the launch of it, David. I was going to go to the official launch in Melbourne. I was invited to it, but I was overseas at the time. Barry is such a great guy. So, I think, underrated in Australian boxing history. He sort of gets forgotten about a little bit. But great boxer back in the day and a champion bloke as well. And still sharp as a razor. What's that there? No Limit is more expensive than Crawford versus Canelo. Is that right, Aris? Jeez, that's Can you get your head around that, guys? Crawford Canelo is cheaper than No Limit. Crap. Crazy. All right. Ben would slap Rolly unconscious with ease, says Batman. Yeah, maybe. Eubank won't fight Hamza. Eubank Jr. commercially is so many levels above Hamza. Almost guaranteed if Eubank beats Ben, Canelo comes to the UK, it will be Eubank Jr. Yeah, no, that's where it makes sense, Batman. Why would Eubank fight Hamza for a very, very risky fight for about a quarter of the money that he'd get fighting Canelo? So don't blame him. Glenn, come on, boys. Don't keep going out. Glenn disagrees with Batman again. Not so sure about that. Rolly is solid. Batman says Tim is a bad mofo still. And Glenn says he's not. Okay. All right. Rolly is solid with a laughing emoji. The guy was getting beat up, Barroso, and was beaten senseless by a 4.4 pitbull behave. Okay. We'll change the subject a bit here. What do we got? Jules. Tim got Fundora 1 because he was a world champ, and Fundora 2 because of how he performed the first time, and no one was fighting Murtazola. That's what I said, Jules. That's why I don't subscribe to his last name. Getting those opportunities. What's that? Tim is much better than Rolly, the crayon eating specialist. Okay. OG, I think Nikita has more potential than Tim. He has more power, and Mongrel just needs to improve defense. Love your work, legend. Thanks, OG. Appreciate it, mate. Well, that's hitting it on the head there. If he can improve his defense and not get caught up in firefights and lose his head, then potentially. But I think, in my opinion, right now there is no question that Nikita is nowhere near Tim. Again, just my opinion. Potentially, he has the ability to go past Tim, but not at the moment. All right, Dave, how are you there, mate? G'day, Lynden and viewers. Love your shows on the US trip. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, mate. Just want to say I'm impressed with the up-and-coming Kira Rustem. I think he may go places. Good skills, great power. Thanks, Dave. Yes, good fighter. Yep. Still a long way to go. And he just needs fights, Dave, and experience. So definitely got the potential. I just hope they don't put him in with Cullen Peters. There was talk they were going to do that. No need for that at this stage. Just keep him coming along, but I'm with you there, mate. I wouldn't mind actually seeing him potentially with a fight with someone like Max McIntyre. I think that'd be good. But again, why have two young prospects fight when they don't need to? So, Drew, I know you're rubbish to a certain degree and with legitimate reasons, Tim versus Zarafa, but the days of Tim taking the A-side high road are gone. Outside of Zarafa, not much excites people right now. No, you're right there, Drew. And yes, you're right. I have rubbished it to a certain degree. But no matter what, Drew, Tim is still the A, B, and C side of that fight. Doesn't matter of what's happened to Tim last year. Again, this is nothing against Michael Zarafa. I'm just stating the facts. But if they put Michael Zarafa in with anyone else as the main event on a pay-per-view, no one's buying it. It's as simple as that. Tim is the A side. Now, Tim is the A side and Zarafa as his sort of accomplice in the whole thing. They'll make plenty of money and get a shitload of pay-per-views. But without sort of Tim in there, and even like Nikita and Zarafa would do a fraction of Tim versus Zarafa. But let me just ask the question here. If the Tszyu didn't exist, would we be even talking, or would you guys be even talking about Michael Zarafa? He'd be in the Sam Goodman position. Or probably not even in that position because Sam Goodman's about to fight for a world title. So Michael Zarafa is not there. If without, like Michael Zarafa doesn't and wouldn't get mentioned at all by the Australian boxing public if Tim Tszyu and Nikita Tszyu weren't in the occasion. Now, again, I'm not having a crack at Michael here, but for me, that is just fact. The only time Michael Zarafa gets mentioned is when Nikita or Tim Tszyu are in the conversation. And that is it. I don't see Main Event or anyone else with what, all these YouTube shows, what's Michael Zarafa doing next? It's like, well, Michael Zarafa is doing this in the hope of fighting Tim Tszyu or Nikita Tszyu. And that's why, as I said, mate, Tim is the A, B, and C side in this fight, regardless of what happened last week. All right, Batman, arguably the worst world champion in the modern era is Rolly Ramiro, the technique of a novice. Yeah, but Glenn's right. He did bash Garcia. Looks like they're going to do it again anyway. Who bashed Haney? Good call there, Glenn. We'll keep moving. Aris, his surname fast in his career. Mate, 100%. I said that before. This is Tim Tszyu we're talking about. 100% it opened a lot of doors and fast-tracked his career. I'm not saying it didn't. What I'm saying is that his last name didn't get him the fights with Fundora and Murtazaliev and the rematch with Fundora. Got the Fundora fight, the first one, because he was the champion. Got the Murtazaliev fight because he was the only one willing to step up. He got the third fight because of the first fight, probably shenanigans with Fundora and just being the more logical opponent available at that time in the rematch with Fundora. So yeah, 100% it fast-tracked his career, but it's not the reason the last 2 or 3 years where he is. His performances in the ring is the reason why he is where he is. All right, we'll keep going there. Jules, Tim generates money when he fights. That's what will shortcut him to a world title opportunity, just like Kambosos. It's a business, but Tim needs a long spell on the sidelines to heal. I agree with you there, Jules. I think he should take the rest of the year off. Come back in sort of February, March next year. Have maybe fight, if it is, say, February or March, go again in June or July. Another Joey Spencer type fight, and then maybe go at the end of the next year with a step up. As I said before, maybe top 10, top 15, one of those type of fighters. Probably top 10, test yourself, or worst case, the Michael Zarafa fight is there. And who's to say where Michael Zarafa will be by then? Nikita might actually take it out of his hands anyway, but Michael, he might get an opportunity for another world title, and if he wins it, maybe he'll go off and do other stuff. If he loses, well, that's probably the end of the line for Michael as well, or maybe it is the one last hurrah for both guys. I mean, for Michael, I just don't see him beating, well, we know what happened with Lara, but we saw what happened there. I just can't see him beating a Janabek or a Carlos Adames. I just can't. So I'm not quite sure where he goes, and that's why the Tim Tszyu fight is so important for him. But again, I'm looking at the end of next year if that fight takes place. What's that, Batman? Haney got bashed up by Loma. Let's not pretend. Yeah, I'm not sure he got bashed up, Batman, but I thought Loma won that fight. I just want to shout out Jake Clay, who trains at my boxing club. He won the WBC Australasian title on the weekend. Good stuff, Shadow Boxer. Now, he was a pretty good amateur from memory too, wasn't he, Jake? Unless I've got him mixed up with someone else. Well done to Jake, Shadow Boxer. Shout out to him. Thanks, Glenn. We do agree on something. See, I did say Abel Sanchez before. Tim's training isn't really the issue, I don't believe. Just the matching was let's take on anyone. And I said after the first Fundora fight on here, I hope leaving Tim in for that long with little vision. Yes, agree. What about Justin Fortune as a potential coach for Tim? Nah, I don't like it, Double G. Well, what's Justin ever done? No disrespect to Justin, but he's known as a cornerman of Manny Pacquiao, and it's really just a strength and conditioning coach. Now, I know some will say he had Israel Vasquez, the late, great Vasquez, but he was really inherited from Freddie Roach. He was a Freddie Roach fighter who Justin co-trained and left to go with Justin when Justin and Freddie Roach had their fallout. It hasn't really done anything in the meantime, Double J. I'm just not quite sure what he brings to the table. And probably an example of that is Justin, if you remember, trained George Kambosos for the Camille Bella fight in New Zealand in 2017. One fight, and that was it, and George moved on. So I'm not quite sure the circumstances there, but I'm just not quite sure if that says enough for you that George only lasted one fight with Justin and then moved on. And Justin's a good guy. I've been to his gym numerous times in LA. I just don't see him as an elite trainer. I just don't. I just think he's in the right spot at the right time when he was with Freddie Roach back when Manny Pacquiao walked through the doors, and a lot of doors have opened for him since then. So has got a role in it all, but I just don't see him as an elite trainer, Double G. Tim's training is the issue. The floors were all, what's that say? Sparring based, I think. Hang on, training based. Sorry, training based. Yes, Glenn agrees. He's a conditioning trainer. Yep. Ray Lee, I agree. No disrespectful to Tim's team, but if he makes a change, it could be for the better to make the adjustments. I watched Harry Garside in Dancing with the Stars. He made it to the semi-finals. He did do all right, didn't he, Ray Lee? Next to the guides, Tim's conditioning is good. For me, it's more technique and game plan, and advice between rounds is a major problem. Do agree with you there, Nectar. I don't think his conditioning is the issue. The fight with Fundora was probably the only fight I've ever really seen him gassed, but that fight was fought at 100 miles an hour, and if you look at it, Fundora wasn't expelling a lot of energy. It was just the constant punches. Just, was he throwing 100 odd punches around? It was the constant punches in Tim's face, and he's trying to move and come up. He was doing all the work, Tim, even though he was on the back foot, where Fundora was still conserving a lot of energy. So I don't think conditioning is the issue, but I'm 100% with you, Nectar. It's technique, it's game plan, and the advice between rounds. Yep. Toby Bartlett, how are you, Toby? G'day from the UK. Welcome to the show, mate. Great to have you along. Where are we? Just feel fighting a 6'6" guy with the longest reaching boxing and overlooking a KO artist is what led to this, and the corner not stopping the first Fundora fight, saving Tim taking 9 rounds with little vision. Yep. 10 rounds actually, Batman, but yep. Glenn says true, but he's fundamentally flawed. All right, Eminem. Did we ask this before? Did Paro Pitbull, could it be coming? Paro and Pitbull, did notice No Limit were posting a lot of Pitbull crews trying to get fans up hip to him to build up the Paro fight. Yeah, well observed, Eminem. I didn't sort of take much notice, but maybe. Gee, that'd be a ripper fight, wouldn't it? Liam and Pitbull. Where are we? Ray Lee. I watched a couple of Barcrum's past fights before he fought Tim, and the jury is out for me until I see him fight again. He looked awkward. I'm with you, Ray Lee. This has probably been my argument all along as well. I want to see Barcrum in some of these elite, fights against other elite fighters. He looked great against Tim Tszyu, but Tim just did everything wrong in that fight. I think we all agree. And Barcrum just took advantage of that. I wasn't that impressed in Barcrum's win over Cole K. So I want to see that even the Lubin fight will tell us a little bit. I want to see Barcrum in with someone like a Fundora. Let's see if he can do better than what Tim did. I know he could probably land that big left hook. Yeah, I don't know. This is, I think, a question I've seen a few people ask in defense of Tim. Let's see how some of those other elite 154-pounders go fighting Fundora, and let's see if they can do any better than what Tim did. Oh, there you go. Double A, or how do you think Lubin will match up against Murtazalia for the IBF title? I think the only hope Murtazaliev's got double A is he lands one of those big left hooks. That's what I just said then. Let's see how he fares. Glenn, he was fasting in one, for the Cole K fight. Yeah, he was for Ramadan. But I agree we need to see more of him. Seriously, who else beats that version of Fundora at 154 and 160? Well, everyone's beatable, Jules. I still think back to the Mendoza fight. He can be caught. You've just got to fight him the right way. And unfortunately, the way that Tim fought him was exactly the wrong way to fight him. Going straight back in a straight line is not the way fighting Fundora at his range, going back in a straight line, is the exact wrong way to fight him. That's why I said also in my review, he should have been coming forward and outside the shoulders. It would have been a hell of a lot more effective and given him an opportunity getting in close and, more importantly, out of range of those straight shots, because Fundora is not a big hooker, he throws some uppercuts in close, but not really a hooker. So if you get outside the shoulders, sort of takes away a lot of his advantages of that long reach and those long straight punches that he throws. And getting outside the shoulders have negated a lot of that and just got Tim in a position where he might have been in a position to counter Fundora effectively. So that would be my advice to anyone that fought Fundora. I noticed Zayas was being hit as he stepped back, similar to Tim. Yeah, well, it's a bad thing to do against Fundora. Yes, I didn't mention this one. Good to see Shay Keneally fronting up to Clarissa Shields over the weekend. Would be a hard ask to win, but a good payday and great exposure for her. That's why sometimes you got to invest in yourself, Naz, and get over there and get in Clarissa Shields' face. I wouldn't be surprised if Shay Keneally's next. Wouldn't mind seeing Shay up against Desley Robinson as well. What's that? I'd pick Virgil to stop Fundora. Yeah, quite possibly. We'll keep moving there. All right. Jai, a little bit like Australia's Bud, doesn't have the name and doesn't talk much. Not a good combination for high profile. Yep, that's right. Should forgot about the fasting, swinging his arms, missing his shots, but when he landed, he was doing damage in the rounds. I watched fasting. Yep, that was for Ramadan. What's that? Tony Harrison says he wants 5 more fights over the next year or so. I hope not. Under Salita Promotions. And Salita's keen because Tony's huge in Detroit and Shields is out of contract. Well, let's hope that Solita Promotions don't just take advantage of Tony Harris and Toby and milk him for all they can and then just throw him away like he's a bit of trash. Drew, the only reason I could see for Tim continuing versus Fundora was to try and reconcile with the fact that it could be his last title shot for a long time. Yeah, maybe. Is Tyson Fury the greatest heavyweight in his prime? Mark. Is that a trick question? Are you trying to be funny? Not sure I've seen your comment before, mate. You could have come up with something a little bit better than that. No, I appreciate the comment, mate, but no, that is not. What do you got there? Glenn Tyson is the greatest wanker in the world. There you go. All right, we've got about 10 minutes to go. I'll go past these pretty quick. Sliding doors moment for Bolchuk on that card also, where would he be now if he fought and beat Fundora? Yes, good call there. He was supposed to fight him. What a card that ended up being, which he may have done based on what he did to Mendoza and unlucky against Ortiz. When you look at it, that card was a really, really good card. I'm just going to quickly bring it up. We might have to go into a bit of overtime the way we're going, but I'm going to quickly bring it up because I want to see that card. It was at the time it was getting criticised for not being very attractive, but on that card, because it was the first Prime Video one, wasn't it? Amazon Prime. So we had Tszyu Fundora, we had Lara and Zarafa, we had Rolly Romero, Isaac Cruz, we had Brian Mendoza, Sergey Bolchuk. We had, where was he? I mentioned Mendoza. We had Julio Cesar Martinez and Angelino Cordova for the world flyweight title. Kermel Moton was also on that card as well. So what a great card that was. People talk about Jai not having the charisma to capture the media attention, but I don't think Tim has any more or less charisma than Jai. Yeah, not a bad call, Drew. If anything, I think Jai gives more in interviews. Yeah, he probably does, Drew. That's where the Tszyu name opened the doors for him, though, Drew. Right off the bat. People just love him because it's the vibe, if you want to call it that, of the Tszyu name and the theatre of it all. There you go, Toby. Jai gets loads of love here in the UK. He's a superstar. We'll certainly take him if you don't want him. That's the tragedy of the whole thing, Toby. Apparently over there, Jai'd probably get mobbed in the street. Over here, people would walk past him and don't even know who he is. It's a travesty on our country, mate. That's one thing I envy about the English fans. They love their sports people. Ado doesn't trust Tim's chin anymore. Yeah, good call. Great night. Also had an amazing seat. Best I've had in Vegas. Row A, just off the floor. Good stuff, Batman. That was for last week's fights. You checked my seat. You got on the seat plan, did you? Yeah. Yeah, no, it was a good seat. That's for sure. I also love watching Ortiz fights, but I thought Bolchuk won that fight. I thought it was close, Riley. I thought it could have gone either way. Pound for pound, king away there, mate. Nice profile picture you got there. Yeah, Batman, like Jai's mentality, the man is vicious. Certainly is, mate. Yeah, I'm with you there, Shadow Boxer. Jai's hilarious in interviews, whether he means to be or not. I agree. I love watching his interviews. Carl, old mate, Big J versus Jai because he didn't believe in Jai during his early days on T Street. Jeez, Big J, you got to slap yourself for that, mate. Jason Lang, okay, yep. Training Harry Garside. AI says Nikita is going to get badly chinned when he steps outside the no limit bubble. Let's hope not, mate, but he needs to improve. Why didn't Parker Cabial happen this year if they both wanted the Usyk fight? Good question, Mark. I think, again, I think it's just playing it safe. Parker wouldn't know, and he was in line for a shot. He was probably promised a shot. He was obviously going to fight Dubois, remember? And then that went awry. He was probably told just to be patient. He would get Usyk next. So I think Cabial would just be too much of a risk for him. All right. We'll keep going through there. Fundora was actually the underdog in the rematch. Is that right? 245 by betting against that bum tip. Come on, Mark. That's not very nice. It's okay to have your opinion, but don't call him a bum. All right, Daniel. So what does the 154-pound division look like moving forward? Who would you like to see fight? Does anyone dare take Murtazalov? Don't get too carried away with Murtazalov, Daniel. There'll be plenty of fighters that will happily take him on. Look, I'm going to back Fundora over Murtazalov. I think Virgil Ortiz over Murtazalov. Who else is there? Sorry, I've lost the rankings there. There's a few fighters. Don't look. Murtazayev was fantastic against Tim Tszyu, but as I said, I'm not getting too carried away. I want to see him back it up. All right, 154. I think I went through this yesterday too, by the way, on my video, so I won't get too in-depth in it. But he's got Lubin coming up, of course. See what Crawford does. Zayos. Let's just say there's lots of good fights to be made, Daniel. I can't elaborate too much, mate, because we've only got about 6 minutes to go. Yeah, Murtazayev, Boachok is a banger. I agree. Great call about CBS. I was thinking this the other day, but he's proven in the past he doesn't want the smoke. He doesn't want it, mate. He doesn't want it. That's for sure. Where are we? Sorry, I'll go back down. Sorry, I've just lost myself here. All right. Hope Top Rank goes to DAZN. Make DAZN a one-stop boxing shop. Yeah, good call, Eminem. Be interesting to see what they do. What's that? Said at the time, but Fundora one might have taken more than Tim than it seemed. Yeah, the brain needs time to recover, and he didn't get it. They tried to put him in with Ortiz. He may never fully recover. Yeah, well, all will be told in the future, mate. Batman's got Tim beating Thurman if it happens. Yeah, I think quite possibly. Johnny Ringo. I think I went to actually Johnny Ringo's bar when I was in Tombstone there. Johnny, I'm not sure that's your correct name, but I went to Johnny Ringo's, might have been a saloon or something in Tombstone. What do you say? I think Tim has a problem when he hits a dude flush and he doesn't crumble. It could just be a psych adjustment, maybe. Zayas has called out Murtazayev for unification. What are his chances? Yeah, I think he's capable, Nick. I think he could beat Murtazayev. Yep. Again, I just want to see what Murtazayev looks like in his next fight with Lubin. It's a long time ago, the Tim fight, and Zayas is a good fighter. So, yeah, I think that'd be a really good fight. Tony says, also I think Tim hits and then stands back too much to admire his handiwork instead of following up with another hit. Yeah, yep. Tim's not gone, but he needs a long recovery. Needs to think about how bad he still wants it. Walking away and enjoying his life might be a good idea. He can't afford to get hurt again. Yeah. Lots of hard decisions to be made, Jules, that's for sure. Any thoughts on Wednesday's card in Japan from Grommets? The one coming up, I don't know anything about it. Grommet, enlighten me, mate. Let's see. Hang on. What's coming up? On Monday. Where is it? Japan. That's Wednesday. I don't know. Sorry. Hang on. I'll type in. Hang on. Where are we? Forgive me there. Grommets, I haven't done my research, have I? I didn't know there was a card this week in Japan. Where are we? All right. Let's have a quick look. All right. Yep. Wednesday the 30th. Antonio Vargas. Oh, okay. Yep. Dago Higa. Okay. Taraji's fighting. There you go. Fighting Ricardo Sandoval for the world title. I didn't know that. Apologies, Grommets. Love Kenshiro Taraji. Ran sort of top 10 or 12 pound for pound. And Vargas is not bad either. So, yeah, okay. Yep. Is it on? Let us know. Does Flash, does Dry stay waiting to attempt unification or move to another division for a Bivol fight or Arda Beterbiev or someone else that can keep Jai busy before returning to unify? Nah, mate, as I said, one more fight, then go to heavyweight. Unless someone like David Benavides or a Bivol or Beterbiev. I don't think Beterbiev would, but maybe a Bivol, definitely a Benavides. They might say, hey, look, stay at cruiserweight for 12 more months, have another fight or two, and we'll come up. That's the only thing I think that keeps him there. If not, I think he has one fight and he moves up. What's that? Jai struggled with an old Breedis. The current heavyweight division is deep with Sharks. Yeah, but I think he can do it, Mark. I think he can. You don't know how they're going to react when he goes up the extra, 20 pounds, whatever it is. But no, I think he'll do okay. Andy, I like and appreciate both Tszyu brothers, but in my book, accomplishments matter most. Therefore, Tim will remain better in my book unless Nikita accomplishes better. Respect to both. Yep, I agree. OG, as I've said before, I want to see Tim retire, taking too much damage, cash out, enjoy his life. Yeah, it's another option there, mate. All right, a couple more. Buckram is the 154 boogeyman. Turkey himself said he can't get Buckram a fight. People ducking, but Turkey refused to name names. Yeah, but I think Turkey's proven, Andy, that if the money's right, which he can put up, he'll get the fights done. Well, Buckrum's with Main Events, which is the Duvers, so I'm not quite sure what's happening there, but, geez, you're in trouble if Turkey can't get him a fight, aren't you? What's that? And Batman, they should match Nikita carefully. Can be a very big name if they keep him winning. Yeah. He's already a big name here in Australia, mate, and he sells a lot of pay-per-views. The problem is when that's not enough. When you got to deliver on the big stage, at some point they're going to have to give him a good opponent, and can he deliver or not? That's the question. All right, Drew, this might be the last time. We'll see how we go. Unfortunately, I don't think we ever get to see Jai versus Usyk. Usyk retires before Jai gets a chance. Nobody's fault, just a ships in the night timing issue. Yeah. I think we're about 12 months or 18 months off kilter there, Drew. It's just, I'm with you. I've got a feeling it's not going to align, but what a fight that would be. I think Jai's the only one that's got the ability to beat Usyk. I really do. Whether he does or not is a different story, but I think similar styles. I think he's a chance to win. The problem is we haven't seen him at heavyweight, of course, so a lot of water to go on the bridge, but who knows? You never know. All right, guys, we are right on 9 o'clock. That's 2 hours. We've been chatting. It always goes quick, but guys, really appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure you watch Walking Boxing every morning. It's on normally by about sort of 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. I get it up. So check that out, and plenty more content coming as well. So guys, thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday on Talking Boxing.